Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. This morning, we want to look at Yahweh's unforbidden truth. Yahweh's unforbidden truth. When we read the book of Bereshit, in the opening portion of it, we see there that which we call the forbidden fruit. But I want to look at the unforbidden truth of Yahweh, that we should understand that Yah is sovereign. He is king over all things. And when Yah speaks, his word is law. When Yah says this is the way you worship me, that's what he means. When Yah says you must remember the seventh day to keep it Kodash, that's what he means. So man has been given what we call the usufruct rights. A usufruct right is a right found in civil law, and it has mixed jurisdiction that combines two things: the right of property, which is usus, and the rights of profit from it, which is fructus. So Adam, the first man, was given usufruct rights, meaning, Adam, you can live in this land, in this garden, and you can benefit from everything in this garden, but it's not yours. Possession is not ownership, because the earth is Yah and the fullness thereof. Everything in the earth belongs to Yah, so he determines. He is the eternal landlord. So when he speaks, it behooves us to hear what he says and do what he says. And so we're going to be looking at that usufruct rights that were given to Adam and Eve. And we're going to look at Eve's reception of Satan's deception. We're going to look at that and see how it is done through inception, inflection, deflection, and then we can form some inference from that. We want to look at that. But turn with me first to the book of Chizayon, that's Revelation that was just read, in chapter 22, and the word says, "And he showed me a great river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. And in the midst of the street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation." Now, as you see this, you read that the tree is on either side of the river. And you ask yourself, is it two trees? Because it's on either side. Is it in the middle of the river? And so we are going to come back to this, but as we read this, we recall that we see this tree in the book of Genesis, and we don't hear anything more about the tree of life until we come to the last chapter in the book of Revelation. So I want you to turn with me to Genesis, the book of beginnings, Bereshit, And we're going to dilate a little on chapter 3, because in chapter 3, we're going to see how it's important that we take notice of when Yah speaks and also when the devil speaks. So the emphasis here is to listen to the cadences, because Yeshua, when they asked him, well, what will be the signs of a time in Matthew 24, verse 3 and 4, what will be the things that will get our attention before you come the second time? And he said, let no man deceive you. And in that passage of scripture, 4 times Yeshua said, let no man deceive you. And the apostle Shaul, Paul, picks up that theme in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, and he said, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there be a falling away. There is going to be an apostasy in the church first. And that man of sin will reveal himself the son of perdition, who opposed and exalted himself above all that is called Yah, or that is worshipped, so that he, as Yah, sitteth in the temple of Yah, showing himself to be Yah. So Yeshua is letting us know that the end times are going to be one of deceptions, an era full of lies and half-truth. Sometimes it's not a blatant lie, it's a half-truth, convincing enough to hide a lie in it. And then you buy it. And we're going to see this in chapter 3 as we go through to see how Satan did what he did and deceive our first parents. Because you can well imagine that the angelic host were mired with intrigue after the civil war that was in heaven. We read in Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7, there was war in heaven, and Satan fought. And he fought with his angels, and angels fought, and there was no place in heaven for him, and he was thrust down to the earth. And so the war that precipitated by Satan's impudence, we see came into the Garden of Eden. And so he spoke with this imperial tone. But it was more aspirational than real. You heard him in Isaiah and in Ezekiel. He said to himself, I want to be like the Most High. I'm going to bring my throne up to where Yah is. That's the imperial tone that he spoke with. Come with me to Bereshit chapter 3, and the word says, and the Naash, that's a serpent, was more crafty, was more subtle than all the lives of the field which Yahweh Elohim has made. I don't want you to miss that. Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim had said, do not eat of every tree in the garden? I want you to take particular notice of the cadences and see how Satan often embroidery is temptation to make it look as if it is something worth pursuing, and then He lulls you into a sense of false security. Then he comes back, and he, being the accuser of the brethren, condemns you for following him. So the word says, and the serpent was more subtle than all the lives of the field, all the beasts which Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true? So when you increase the cadence in the sentence, it becomes a question. When you increase cadence, is it true? And the woman said to the serpent, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. You see, I started out by saying Yah is sovereign. And the instruction that he gave was, you live here, and you don't pay any rent. You must live under the rules of the house where I've placed you. Don't do this. The serpent comes along, the tempter, and said to the woman, listen to, in the first instance, he increased the cadence. In the second attempt, he decreased the cadence. So when you decrease the cadence, it becomes urgent. It becomes urgent. He said, you shall not surely die. You shall not surely die. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good from evil. Now, I want you to take notice here, because when we read chapter 2, come with me to chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 8. It says, and Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put a man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out from Eden to the water of the garden, and from there it divided, became 4 heads. Come with me to verse 15. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, important, keep your eyes on this because we're dealing with the cadence here. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. Let's go back to chapter 3. The serpent says, is it true? Is it true that Elohim, did you get that? In chapter 2, When Moses took dictation and wrote this down, he emphasized which Elohim is speaking. Yahweh Elohim. Don't miss that. Because there are many mighty ones, but he wants you to know it is Yahweh Elohim, Yud A Vav He. Because Moses had asked him, what is your name in the book of Exodus? And he told him that my name is Yud A Vav He, and we pronounce that Yahweh. So, but in chapter 3, Satan removes Yahweh. He just calls him Elohim. In the King James and other version, he would just say, God says. So you don't know which God is speaking. He took that away. Are you with me? And the woman said to Nahash, the serpent, we are to eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, do not eat of it nor touch it. Did Yahweh say that? Yahweh never said you shouldn't touch it. We read that. So you see the deception by inflection. At the inception, they're changing the little things to had. Yah says, let no man add to this word, or let no man take away from the word. Satan took away the name. It's no longer Yahweh Elohim, it's just Elohim. In your Bible, it's just God. And now Eve is saying, Yahweh said we shouldn't touch it. We just read in chapter 2 where Yahweh didn't say that. Didn't say that. And the Nahash said to the woman, you shall not surely die. Yah said you shall die. And so what Satan is doing here is changing the view that they had of Yahweh. That's what the church has done sometime. Well, you don't have to keep the Shabbat. You don't have to keep the Sabbath because these are for some other people. Yah's word is law. We have usufruct rights. We can live in the garden. We can live in the earth, in his land, and we can benefit from those usufruct rights, but it's not ours. That's why he says in Leviticus chapter 25, in relation to Israel, the land must not be sold forever. Whoever is righteous will inherit that land, but it's not there, it's mine. They have usufruct rights. It's not theirs. And so the woman saw the tree was good for food. That's a physical. Watch how Satan does things. She saw that the fruit was good for food. Physical. That it was pleasant to the eyes. Aesthetic. Beauty. Are you with me? Watch how he plays on people's emotions. It's good. Look at it. Physical. You can touch it. Yah said, leave it alone. It's pleasant to the eye. It's desirable to make one wise. It's intellectual. It's playing to your senses. Do you see that? So it's aesthetic, it's physical, and it's intellectual, because it will also make you wise. And so this chapter here gives us a window into the nature of man. Is it not? We're always trying and looking for things that are desirable to the eye, not necessarily pleasing to Yah. And man is trying to be wise intellectually. I have this and I have done that. Here it is. It all started in Genesis. Then the eyes of both of them were opened after they ate the fruit. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of the fruit and ate, and she also gave her husband with her, and he ate. He did not even put up a struggle. He just ate. It was told to him in chapter 2, don't eat of that tree. You see, the whole idea here is that Adam and Eve, like you and I, were to learn by knowledge of good and evil, but not by experience. What do you mean? Take, for example, a young student enrolls in college and wants to study medicine. He wants to be a doctor. She wants to be a doctor. They graduate and they are studying medicine, and they learn of all the different types of diseases by knowledge, not by experience. You don't have to get a disease to be a doctor. Adam, Eve, you will learn of evil by way of knowledge, but not firsthand, secondhand. Yah knows good and he knows evil, but he doesn't experience evil. Adam, I want you to be like that. I want you to learn about evil, but not to experience it. There's no curriculum in university that says a doctor has to contract a disease to be a doctor. You learn about it. The epidemiologist studies about diseases, but he doesn't have to contract it to be a useful servant in public health. He doesn't have to do that. And I'll make the point even more salient if you come with me to chapter 34 of Genesis. The word here says that and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And Shechem, son of Hamor, the Ewite, prince of the land, saw her and took her and lay with her and humbled her. Dinah grew up in Prince Jacob's house. She knew integrity. She knew innocence. She knew that. She knew what the daughters of the land were doing. She was to learn about evil not by experience. Flee fornication, Dinah. Flee. But the word says she went out into the land to see what the daughters of the land were doing, and she lost her innocence. Like an unripe fruit, she was plucked from the garden of innocence. And she no longer can claim to know innocent firsthand, but only second and now. And she now knew evil. She knew fornication first, and which she was not supposed to know. That's what happened in the Garden of Eden. And so Yahweh comes along having seen that his direction had not been followed. His laws were not heeded by this man, Adam, a mind that was untainted, a mind that was circumspect, standing on the perpendicular height of divine wisdom. But now, Satan comes along and said, you don't even have to call him Yahweh Elohim. You don't have to define him. Just call him anyhow. And Eve followed and said, Elohim said. She didn't say Yahweh Elohim. She followed what Satan says. So Yah comes along, and the word says, then both their eyes were opened. Satan did not lie in that sense, but open to what? As I indicated, they were not supposed to experience the evil, only learn of it. Only learn of it. At the time their eyes were open, they knew they were naked. Prior to that, the word says they were naked and they knew it not. There was no evil, salacious thoughts entering into their minds at all, even though, because they were covered by righteousness. Righteousness. You know, I often listen to people making pleas saying, we want justice. People go to court and they want justice. And my contention is, but how can you get justice when justice simply means the application of righteousness? How are you going to get justice, the application of righteousness in a corrupt system? How are you going to get that? So Yahweh comes down, and Yahweh Elohim called unto Adam and said to him, where are you? Adam, where art thou? Watch what is happening here now. Yahweh, or Yeshua, becomes a judge. He must try this case. When you go into a courthouse, one of the first things that they do is ask you, are you guilty or not guilty? Adam, just fess up. Confess. Where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. But Adam, you and I speak almost daily, and you have never found yourself in this position. Neither have you been afraid of me. Something happened, Adam, because Yah is not asking Adam. He knew exactly what Adam did. The message here is for generations yet unborn. And not only that, he wants to elicit from Adam confession of guilt. Are you guilty or not guilty? That's what the judge, you usually ask in court, is it not? And he said, who made you know that you were naked? Who have you been having conversation with? Adam? Has somebody been here? Have you eaten the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat? Have you? And the man said, instead of saying, yes, I'm guilty, listen to what he says. He says, the woman whom you gave me, she gave me off the tree and I ate. What Adam is saying, I was ribbed. This woman you took out of me, the womb man. Understand? Yah said he made a man, and he made male and female, one with a womb and one without a womb. And when he took the woman, the womb man, out of the man, Adam called her womb man, meaning this is a man with a womb, because man is plural. Adam is saying, this womb man here, she gave it to me, and I ate. It's my circumstances that caused that. I'm not in church today keeping the Sabbath, the 7-day Sabbath, because I had another appointment. That's how people reason. Oh, the church is too far. I have to work because, Yah knows the heart. Adam, have you eaten of the tree? And so we're watching the inflection. We're watching and we're listening the drop of the voice. You know, the word cadence comes from the word that means fallen. Fallen. And from that you get the word cadet, meaning you're an apprentice, somebody in training, and you kind of get the impression here, Adam behaved even as Eve did as an apprentice. They were like cadets. And so, and the man said, the woman whom you gave me, she was the one who is responsible for me eating. And Yahweh Elohim, here we come back to Yahweh Elohim, said to the woman, what is this that you've done? And the woman said, the Nahash, the serpent deceived me. Nobody's taking responsibility here. Nobody is saying to the judge, guilty. And Yahweh Elohim said to the Nahash, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all livestock and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you are to go and eat dust all the days of your life. And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between you and the seed, and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. To the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Bring forth children in pain, and your desires for your husband, and he does rule over you. And to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I command you, saying, do not eat of it, curse is the ground because of you. In toil you are to eat of it, and in the days of your life. He had conversation with the woman and with the man, but Satan, he just simply cursed. Sometimes there are people whom Yahweh has nothing to say to them. Nothing at all. You're in a bad state when Yah is not speaking to you. You remember Pilate? When Pilate asked Yeshua the question, and the word says, Yeshua answered not a word. A degraded man. Yah no longer speaks for him. He's not on speaking terms with Yah. And I'd like to go to the book of Jubilees, which they call a second Genesis. Second Genesis. Because as I read from the book of Jubilee, the word here says in chapter 2, it says that Yah appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth for days and for Sabbats, plural. Meaning that it's not just the 7-day Sabbath, but the annual Sabbath ought to be kept. And for months and for feasts and for years and for Sabbats of years and for jubilees and for the seasons of the year. That's what Yah did when he created those things. And on the 6th day, he created all animals of the earth and all cattle and everything that moves on the earth. And after all this, he created man, a man and a woman created he them, and gave him dominion over all that is up on the earth. He gave them usufruct rights. That's what he did. We need to understand that. So Yahweh made them and put them in the garden. And this is what the Jubilee is saying. In the first week was Adam created, and the rib of his wife in the second week. He showed her unto him, and for this reason the commandment was given to keep in their defilement for a male 7 days, and for the female twice 7 days. And after Adam was completed 40 days in the land where he had been created, we brought him, this is the angel talking now, we brought him into the Garden of Eden to till it. Are you with me? Adam was brought into the garden after 40 days, and his wife was brought after 80 days. That's what the word here in Jubilee says. And he says, Adam and his wife were in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling it and keeping it, and we gave him work and we instructed him to do everything that is suitable. So Adam and Eve spent, according to the book of Jubilees, 7 years in the garden. The word says that 7 years exactly, and in the second month of the 17th day of the month, the serpent came and approached the woman. After 7 years. And what interests me in this also is the fact that the 17th day of the second month is the same day that the flood came, and in Noah's time. Same day the serpent came. The same day that destruction hit the earth, that's when Satan came to tempt Eve. And she fell for it. She fell for it. And so the cadence of his speech, that's Satan's speech, in the Garden of Eden was such that it induced and inveigled Eve to reason with him. And the serpent said, "You shall not die." Now, the question is, did Adam die? Yes, he did. But some would say, but he never died. He did not die in the day that Yah said he would. And I would say, yes, he did. In 2 Peter 3 in verse 8, Yah says, well, Peter is writing here, and Peter says, Be not ignorant of this one thing, that a day is 1,000 years. Be not ignorant of that. One 24-hour terrestrial day is equal to 1,000 years celestial years. Peter says that. And then we read that Adam lived 930 years, 70 years short of a day, a celestial day. So he died on the day that he was created. He never lived a day. Not even Methuselah lived a day. Methuselah lived 969 years, and he never lived a day. No man, because of sin, has ever lived a day. No man. And that's why the seventh day, which we call the millennium, is so reserved for man, because ever since Adam, man has not seen righteous rule. And so the millennium year, the 1,000-year period, which is when we're told in Revelation chapter 20, an angel came down. What kind of an angel? A strong angel, and bound Satan and locked him away for 1,000 years, so that we can live righteously. Because that tree that was in the garden, Yah never told Adam not to eat from the tree of life. He never told him that. He said, notice something here. Yah said you can eat freely. When Eve spoke, Eve never told Satan that Yah said you can eat freely. Never said that. The land is yours. Enjoy it. But live according to my rules. You can eat of any tree in the garden. The only one you mustn't touch and eat, well, I shouldn't even say touch, because Yah did not say that. The only tree you shouldn't eat from is the tree in the middle, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then you ask yourself the question, they spent 7 years in the garden. Why did they not eat from the tree of life first? Now you understand when Yah said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 6:33. And all its righteousness. Then all the other things you want, Adam, that fruit, it will be added unto you. You can't eat that first. You can't seek the world first and then think that I'm going to add the kingdom to you. No, seek the kingdom first, and then all the other things are given to you as blessing. Solomon, what do you want? You're now at Gibeon. I've given you the kingdom, and you're going to rule. Name what is it you want. Solomon said, I want wisdom. Yah says, because you asked for wisdom to rule the people, then all other things I will add on to you. I'll give you wealth. I'll give you everything, because Solomon here, he's seeking for the kingdom first. We've got to understand that. And so Yah then drove the man out of the Garden of Eden and put him back to where he was born. Are you with me? Adam's experience is a window into every man. You're on the earth, and you're supposed to rehearse the events and circumstances for the great event. I want you to worship me and to keep my Sabbaths, even as Abraham did, according to Genesis 26 and verse 5. I can rely on Abraham because he will teach his family the things that he ought to do. And if you don't do these things, I will return you into the place where you came from, in the earth. Dust to dust. You were created to live forever. But sin seeks a wages. The wages of sin is what? Death. But the gift of Yah is eternal life. And the word says in Romans 3:23 that all have sinned and have come short of the glory of Yah. So Adam here was carrying the gene pool of every human being. All of us were tucked up in Adam's loin. So when Adam sinned, sin became a genetic transmission. It's a blood disease. It's a blood disease. And so Yah placed a flaming sword to guard the tree of life, because Adam and Eve might have been tempted to then eat from the tree of life and then live eternally in sin. Yah said, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that. And so this tree is removed from our vision. And we are told, as we read earlier, that in the book of Revelation, the last chapter, because Yah had told us, did he not, in Isaiah, that I have told you everything from the beginning. That which you see in Revelation, that tree in the garden, that tree of life, it was there on offer in Genesis chapter 2. It was there. And I had told you that which is in Revelation in Genesis. And he wants you to know, he said, there is this river. Are you with me? That comes out of the garden, and it breaks out into 4 heads. And the second one is called the Gihon River. And that Gihon River encapsulates all of Cush, all of Ethiopia. Are you with me? And you say, what's this? The Gihon River. And then I read, you better come with me, because you may say this and say that. Come with me to Melachim, that's 1 Kings, LF, and we're going to look at chapter 1. The word says, and Sovereign David was old and advanced in years, and they coveted him with garments, but he could not get warm. So his servant said to him, let them seek for our master, the sovereign, a young woman, a maiden, and she shall stand before the sovereign, and be his companion, and shall lie in your bosom, so that our master, the sovereign, gets warm. Come with me now to verse 33. And the sovereign said to them, take with you the servants of your master, and you shall have Shlomo, or Solomon, my son, ride on my own mule and take him down to Gihon. Hold on. Gihon, as we read earlier, is the river that encapsulates all of Cush, all of Ethiopia. Now, David is getting old, and he wants to pass on the kingdom to his son Solomon. So he calls Zadok, and he calls them, and he said, you're going to anoint him king, but take him down to the river Gihon. Take him down to the river Gihon. Now, my mind now starts racing. And I'm trying to comprehend what's going on. Gion is in Ethiopia, and Gion is in Israel. What's going on? Well, it doesn't stop there, because we read that Ezekiah, who is a descendant of the house of David, also made a tunnel that brought water from the Gion, meaning gushing forth, into Jerusalem. But even more interesting, we are told that Yeshua was passing by and he saw a man that was born blind. And my question is there a man who has not been born blind? I think all men are born blind. And in that sense, I mean that blindness is not merely an impediment of sight. It's when all the senses converge to deny reality. That's blindness. The man who will not see is in a worse condition than the man who cannot see. And that's why Yeshua told his disciple, let no man deceive you by any mean, because in the last day, men are going to come and stand in the pulpit and teach you things that you are going to think it's true. But it's not true. They will change their cadences, inflection, to bring about deception. By way of their inception, how they start their argument. Listen to the person when he's speaking to you, how he starts. What's his rationale? The inception. Listen to the inflection, how he lowers his voice, how he highes his voice. And sometimes anger causes that in people too. Listen. And don't be deceived by countenance. The word says, and Eve saw that it was good. But Yah says, not good. Man shall not live by sight alone, but by every word that comes out of Yah's mouth. So Yeshua saw this man who was born blind, and they wanted to know, well, who sinned? Is it his parents or this man sinned? He simply got some clay, spit on it, put it over the man's eyes, and told him, go and wash in the pool of Siloam. The pool of Siloam gets its water supply from the Gihon River that encompasses Ethiopia. So let's go to Revelation now. And we are told, and he showed me a river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. And in the middle of the street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of life. On either side of the river was the tree of life. How can the tree of life be on both sides if it's not tree? Unless it's, does it overspread into both sides? And it's yielding fruit. How often? Every month, and the leaves are for what? The pharmacists? No. The doctors? No. Therefore, the healing of the nation. He says, everything that you desire, if you seek my kingdom first, I've put healing in the leaves. When you eat them, you'll be healed. You'll be healed. And he makes the point even more glaringly. He says there was a woman suffering with an issue of blood for 12 years, and she went to all the physicians. She went to all the doctors and they emptied her purse and she was not healed. And I was just passing by, said Yeshua, and availed myself, and she touched the zit and she was healed immediately. Who then is your physician? Who then? Talk about Medicare? No, you need Yeshua. And so this tree is in the middle. And he says, and no longer shall there be any curse. That curse that I gave to the earth and I gave to Adam and to the woman, I've taken it away. Why? Because people are now going to be living and how? Righteously. That which was denied them in Genesis they're now given access to it. So sin deny you access to the tree of life, but obedience give you access to it. So my question is, how do you intend to go to the kingdom if you're in disobedience? And most people who go to church on Sunday or on the Sabbath would say, well, we're in obedience. Remember, Satan gives you half truth. Take a simple thing like the Sabbath. In Daniel 7:25, we're told, and they will think to change the laws of what? A time. From sunset to sunset is equal 1 day. They say, no, it's from midnight to midnight. Yes, the 7 days my Sabbath. They said, no, it's the first day. Yes, says in Leviticus chapter 23, all these are my Sabbaths. They said, no, it's for the Jews. He said, I want you to keep the feast of Passover. That's the barley feast. Why is he telling us this? We need to pay attention. I want you to keep the feast of Pentecost. And I want you to keep the feast of Tabernacles. The barley feast is the spring feast. Pentecost or Shavuot is that which Yeshua told them to keep on the day of Pentecost, Acts chapter 2. When we read Matthew chapter 13, it gives us a parable of the wheat and the tares, that he will separate them on the day of the harvest. That wheat harvest is Pentecost. That's when the Ruach came. And if we go 1,500 years prior to that at Mount Sinai, Moses said, let's separate the wheat from the tare. Who is on Yah's side? Come over here. And they came over there, and then he took his machete out, and they slaughtered 3,000 people, separating the wheat from the tare. Go back to Acts chapter 2. The word says 3,000 people were saved on the day of Pentecost. So he balanced the book. Those who were slain then, he balanced it in Acts chapter 2. So he says, I'm coming back. They ask him, well, when are you coming back? He said, no man knoweth the day nor the hour. And so we have preachers, we have teachers going around telling people, nobody knows the day of the hour. See? The word says that no man know the day. He did say that, but what did he mean? It's a Hebrew idiom, mean no man knoweth the new moon. He's talking about the new moon of the 7th month. That's which starts the feast of Tabernacles. The first day of the seventh month, a new moon, it's a Sabbath. It doesn't matter what day it falls on, it's a Sabbath. Whether it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, it's a Sabbath. And it said, on that day, you must have a holy convocation if you belong to me. If you don't keep that, you are on course to miss the second coming of Yeshua. Well, what do you mean? Well, Paul tells you, did he not? He says, when the trump sounds, the last trump, the dead in Yeshua will rise, and those who are alive will be caught up to meet him. Now, hold it there. Almost everybody that I know who are waiting for the second coming of Yeshua don't realize that this is the Feast of Trumpets. And guess what? On the Feast of Trumpets, which is a Sabbath, most believers do not keep it. Meaning, on that day, they will be at school, they will be at shopping in the plaza, in the mall, doing things. And I said to one person, what if? What if he comes on that day and you are not there? Now we can talk about Matthew chapter 25. The virgins fell asleep, and 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. They had no oil in their lamps, meaning they did not understand what the Spirit said, and so their lamp went out. So, as we close chapter 22 of the book of Revelation, he says, and they shall see his face. Wow. You get that? He says, Adam, come out of the bush. Adam was hiding behind the bushes. As so many are hiding behind the bushes today, they don't want to see his face because his word is offensive to them. Come out of the bushes. And his name shall be up on their forehead. Not Jesus, but Yeshua HaMashiach. He is the Mashiach. He is the Messiah. And night shall be no more, and they shall have no need of the lamp or the light of the sun, because Yahweh Elohim shall give them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. The same light that was given in Genesis 1, before the sun and the moon were created on day 4, it's the same light that's going to be in this garden. And he said to me, these words are trustworthy and true, and Yahweh Elohim of the set-apart prophets has sent his messenger to show his servants what has to take place with speed. See, I am coming speedily. Blessed, Baruch, is he who keeps the word of prophecy of this book. Baruch, I bless you. And I, Yohanan, saw and heard these matters, and when I heard and saw, I fell down to worship before the feet of the messenger who showed me these matters. And he said to me, see, don't do it, for I am your fellow servant, and of the brethren of the prophets, and of those who are guarding the words of this book. Worship Elohim. Worship him. And so this is the call, that we ought to keep his word. Meaning, if you ask someone to keep something, you put that thing in their custody, and you're expecting that no one should trespass on it. Sometimes we who say we are Sabbath keepers, people who live with us, are trespassing on that which we are guarding. That means you're asleep. You're not a watchman. You can't be watching over something and watch other people abusing it, and you don't say a word. We've got to understand that the righteousness by which we are justified, it's imputed. It's a gift from Yah. But the righteousness by which we are sanctified is what? Imparted. One is your title to the kingdom. Everyone has salvation paid for. Every lost son of Adam has salvation paid for. It's there. You may eat from it, but you must prove by your obedience, your fitness to the kingdom. Adam, where art thou? In the bushes. Notice the difference between Moses and Adam. Adam hid behind the bushes. Moses saw the bushes on fire, and he wanted to see something. Come, Moses, come. Come, Moses. But the word says in Isaiah from 66, from one new moon to the next, and from 1 month to the next, all flesh will come to do what? Come to worship. Worship. What is worship? Worship comes from the word worth. What is he worth to you? What is he worth? And so, if he's worth nothing, then I can understand why you don't worship him. But if he's worth something, then it behooves you, does it not? And that's why when I hear people foolishly say that these things are done away with, I ask them, by whose command are you told that? Come with me to Zechariah as we close this thing out. Because Yeshua said we should keep the feast days, and in Matthew 5:17, what did he say? He says, don't even conceive the thought that I have come to destroy what the prophets wrote. The churches say, they're done away with. No, Constantine did away with them. And even now, you're still following Constantine. You are listening to Nahash speaking through Constantine, but you're not listening to the word of Yah. You're not. Because when people speak like that, and when they lower the cadences of the word and increase them, they deceive you. Zechariah chapter 14. Come with me. The word says, behold, the day of Yah cometh. Did you get that? No, you didn't get it. Let me say it. When we speak here of the day of Yah, we're not talking about a 24-hour day. When John says, I was in the spirit on Yah's day, John is talking about the millennium period, a celestial day, which is 1,000 years. That's what he's saying. Behold, the day cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee, for I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. All nations mean the Gentiles. Gentiles. You know what intrigues me also? That Paul, who was struck down on Damascus Road, going to imprison the believers, to lock them up, he was struck down in Damascus Road, and Yah said, you know, this Shaul is a holy vessel to me. I have chosen him as a vessel because I want him to take the message of salvation to the Gentiles. Did you get that? Paul, you are going to be the emissary that takes the message to the Gentiles. And to my utter chagrin, Paul makes no visit to Africa. Hold on. Africa has a billion people strong. And you are supposed to take the message to Africa, to the Gentile, and Africa you don't go to? That tells me something. No, I understand James 9:7. Are you not the same to me, O Israel, same as the Ethiopians? Are you not? I understand Zephaniah 2:3-10. He said, my dispersed people from Ethiopia will bring my offering when I come. What's the offering? 10 Commandments, the Ark of the Covenant, which is in Axum. Wait. How did it get to Axum? Because in 2 Chronicles chapter 35, we see Josiah, young King Josiah, looking for the ark, but the ark had been taken to Elephantine Island and to Tanakakos Island and then to Axum in Ethiopia. My dispersed people, they will bring mine offering. But I make that point only to say this, because I want you to join me in verse 16 of Zechariah. It says, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, of all the what? All the nations, all the Gentiles, which came against Jerusalem, shall go up from year to year to worship the King, Yeshua of hosts, and keep the Feast of Tabernacle. They said it's done away with. It's not even fulfilled yet. They are going to come up. This is the millennium. They're going to come and keep the Feast of Tabernacle. And it shall be, verse 17, that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, Yah of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. They won't get any blessing. And if the family of Egypt, are you with me? If Am's children, Egypt, go not up and come not that have no rain, there shall be a plague wherewith Yah will smite the Edens, and come not up to keep the feast of what? Tabernacles. Are you with me? Well, let's read verse 19. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacle. Why is he drumming this thing in? Keep the feast of tabernacle. You know why? Yeshua was born in the feast of tabernacles. That's why the Bible says he came and he tabernacled with us. He was born in September, October, not December. That's when he was born. That's why when they went up to keep the Feast of Tabernacle, there was no room in the inn. It was full because almost 3.5 million people in Jerusalem were up there keeping the Feast of Tabernacle, and therefore he had to be lying in a manger because there was no room in the hotel. That's why. And he said it's not done away with. Even in the millennium, the Feast of Tabernacle must be kept. And the church says we're not keeping it. And I asked the church, how then can you proclaim to be a remnant? How? Well, let me really finish on this then. Revelation 12 and verse 17. So we don't have any misunderstanding of what the remnants look like. Revelation 12 and verse 17, the word here says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. Which woman? Not the one who keeps Sunday and the one who misses out on their commandment. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yeshua. Commandments, including the feast days. That's the only people that the Naash, Satan, is angry with. Not the ones who are not doing it. So deception is worse than persecution. In Yeshua's name, let us continue to look into the word and to make ourselves approved unto Yah by way of how we study his word. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.